The year is 2014. In the humid, heavy air of a government hall in Phnom Penh, a quiet man with soft features puts pen to paper. His name is Chen Zhi. He is only 27 years old. On this afternoon, with a single signature, he discards his Chinese identity and becomes a citizen of the Kingdom of Cambodia. But he is not just another naturalized immigrant. Within months, he is granted the title of Nik Okna, the highest honor of the Cambodian business elite. A title historically reserved for those who have performed legendary service for the monarchy. But what service had a 27-year-old from Fujian performed? To the public, the answer was the Prince Holding Group. Suddenly, as if by magic, the Prince brand was everywhere. It was on the sides of glass and steel skyscrapers that began to puncture the low skyline of the capital. It was on the jerseys of the national volleyball and basketball teams. It was on the massive checks handed over during televised galas for COVID-19 relief and educational foundations. Chen Zhi was the poster boy for the Cambodian dream, the billionaire philanthropist who was going to drag the nation into the digital age. He moved through the world like a ghost wrapped in silk. He flew in a $70 million Gulfstream G650. He collected Patek Philippe watches that cost more than entire Cambodian villages. He bought a Picasso for his private office, not because he loved art, but because he needed a place to store value that wasn't tied to a bank. In official state photos, you will find him standing just a few feet away from the Prime Minister, always silent, always slightly behind the main subject. The shadow advisor who owned the banks, the land, and seemingly, the future of the country. But while the champagne flowed in the penthouses of the Prince International Plaza, a darker reality was being constructed 3 hours south in the lawless coastal town of Sihanoukville. Foreign intelligence agencies began to notice something strange about the Prince developments. These weren't residential condos. They were fortress cities. Complexes like Lixin Harbor City weren't built for tourism. They were built with double-walled concrete, anti-climb spikes, and windows that only opened 2 inches. The gates were guarded not by private security, but by men in military-grade tactical gear carrying AK-47s. To the world, Chen Zhi was a developer. But to the US Treasury, he was something far more dangerous. By late 2025, the investigation codenamed Operation Prince revealed a terrifying truth. The towers in Phnom Penh weren't the main business. They were the Laundromat. The real business was a global engine of theft that was siphoning billions of dollars from the pockets of unsuspecting people across the globe. The scale was unimaginable. When the FBI and the UK's National Crime Agency finally breached the encryption of the group's private financial network, they didn't find millions. They found 127,271 bitcoins. A digital hoard worth over $15 billion, sitting in unhosted wallets that bypassed every banking regulation on Earth. Chen Zhi had built the world's first truly sovereign criminal enterprise. He didn't just have a company. He had a country. He had a seat at the table of power, an advisor's badge at the Ministry of Interior, and a private army. For a decade, he was untouchable. But the one thing he forgot was that even an invisible king leaves a digital footprint. And in 2026, that footprint would lead the world's most powerful hunters straight to his door. If you were to fly a drone over the coastal city of Sihanoukville in 2024, you would see a skyline that looks like a fever dream of unfinished ambition. Half-built skyscrapers, their concrete skeletons exposed to the salt air, sit next to glittering casinos draped in neon. But look closer at the outskirts, in areas like the Royal Yongli Lixin Harbor or the Jin Bay complexes. These are not hotels. They are the industrial parks of the new century. Fortified clusters of windowless buildings, surrounded by double-layered concrete walls, topped with coils of electrified razor wire that hums in the humid air. This is the headquarters of a ghost economy. Inside these walls, the air is cold, stale, and smells of cheap cigarettes and ozone from thousands of server fans. This is where Chen Zhi's employees live and die. But employee is a lie. According to the 2025 Amnesty International report, "I was someone else's property." These were modern-day slaves. The recruitment process was the first layer of the trap. It didn't happen in dark alleys. It happened on your Facebook feed. The ads promised a dream job in Sihanoukville, high-paying roles in digital marketing or technical support for a prestigious multinational conglomerate. They promised a $2,000 monthly salary, free housing, and a path to a better life. For a young graduate in Malaysia or a struggling IT worker in Vietnam, it looked like a lifeline. But the moment they stepped into the black van at the Phnom Penh airport, the trap snapped shut. Their passports were confiscated for visa processing. Their personal phones were taken for security reasons. By the time they passed through the heavy steel gates of the Prince compound, they were no longer human beings. They were assets. They were led to the phone farms. Imagine a room the size of a football field. It is silent, except for the rapid-fire clicking of keyboards and the low murmur of thousands of voices speaking into headsets. Each worker is assigned a desk equipped with 10 to 15 smartphones and a dual-monitor computer setup. On the screens are the scripts. These are not simple sales pitches. They are psychological blueprints developed by teams of behavioral psychologists to exploit human vulnerability. They call it Sha Zhu Pan pig butchering. To the managers on the 13th floor, the victims aren't people. They are pigs to be fattened up with trust and then slaughtered for their life savings. The hunters, the workers, are forced to create fake personas. Using AI-generated photos and deepfake technology, a 20-year-old trafficked victim from Vietnam becomes Chloe, a successful 32-year-old crypto investor in Singapore with a penchant for French wine and sunset yoga. They spend weeks, sometimes months, talking to a target in Ohio or London. They learn about the target's divorce, their sick parents, their fear of retirement. They offer empathy. They offer love. But behind the screen, the hunter is living in a nightmare. Each worker has a daily target. They must engage with 50 new people every day. They must secure at least 3 warm leads by midnight. If they fall behind, the discipline officers appear. These men, often former soldiers or hired thugs, carry electric cattle prods as standard equipment. In the basement of the Golden Fortune Resort, investigators later found the dark rooms. These were acoustic foam-lined chambers where workers were taken for retraining. Survivors like Maria, a former schoolteacher from the Philippines, described the retraining in harrowing detail. If a worker refused to scam or tried to contact their family, they were handcuffed to a metal bed frame and shocked with batons until their skin turned purple. Some were forced to stand in water cells pits filled with sewage for 24 hours at a time. They didn't just want our work, Maria told the FBI. They wanted to break our souls so that we would stop seeing the people on the other side of the screen as human. They told us, the pig must die so you can eat. If you didn't kill the pig, you became the meat. But as the investigation deepened, the FBI realized something even more thrilling. They weren't just looking at a scam. They were looking at a data harvest. Remember the 13th floor office? In every major Prince Group building, from the coast to the Capitol, the elevators were programmed to skip the number 13. To the residents and legitimate office workers, it was just a superstition. But the defectors whispered that if you had a specific black key card, the elevator would take you to a floor that wasn't on the map. On that floor, there were no people. There were only rows of humming blue servers. Investigators discovered that every single conversation, every photo sent, and every secret shared by the pigs was being stored and analyzed by an AI. Chen Zhi wasn't just stealing money. He was building a psychological map of the Western world. He knew who was vulnerable, who was wealthy, and who was influential. But here is the cliffhanger that the world didn't see coming. When the FBI finally breached the 13th floor's digital firewall in early 2025, they found a folder that wasn't supposed to exist. It was titled The Sovereign Keys. Inside that folder weren't just the bank accounts of the victims. There were the private, encrypted messages of high-ranking government officials from across Southeast Asia Europe, and the United States. Chen Zhi hadn't just been pig-butchering regular people. He had been fattening up some of the most powerful leaders on the planet. The question shifted from, how much money did he steal? To, who does he actually control? As the sun sets over the Gulf of Thailand, the neon lights of the Prince compounds flicker to life. To the tourists in the casinos next door, it looks like progress. It looks like wealth. But inside, the hunters are picking up their phones. They are typing, "Hello, I think I have the wrong number, but you look like a kind soul. How is your day?" The fattening has begun, and the 13th floor is watching. But the FBI had just found something in the sovereign keys that suggested the prince wasn't the top of the pyramid. There was another name mentioned in the logs, a name that made the investigators freeze. To find out whose name was in those logs, we have to follow the money out of the compounds and into the secret vaults of the Prince Bank. And that is where the real slaughter begins. If the compounds of Sihanoukville were the engine room of Chen Zhi's empire, then the international financial system was its fuel. To understand how $15 billion in stolen Bitcoin became clean enough to buy a lifestyle of Picassos and private jets, we have to look at a process the FBI investigators called the Great Rinse. This wasn't just a series of bank transfers. It was a global symphony of deception that turned the blood of the slaughtered pigs into the gold of the prince. It began with a man known only in the encrypted logs as the Architect. In mid-2023, a high-ranking analyst at a major European bank in Frankfurt noticed a strange, microscopic pattern. Every Tuesday at 3 a.m., thousands of small transactions, all exactly $9,998, would flow into a series of shell companies registered in the British Virgin Islands. The amount was deliberate. It was exactly $2 below the $10,000 threshold that triggers an automatic anti-money laundering alert to federal regulators. But there weren't just a few of these transfers. There were tens of thousands. The money was coming from money mules, thousands of regular people in Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, and Jakarta who had been paid $50 to open bank accounts in their own names. These people had no idea they were part of a global criminal syndicate. They were just buffers in the system. Once the victims sent their money to these local accounts, the Architect's software would take over. This is where the mystery of the 13th floor office takes a technical turn. On the 13th floor of the Prince Holding Group headquarters, the FBI's cyber division later discovered a server cluster running a proprietary algorithm called the Prism. This was Chen Zhi's secret weapon. The Prism was a high-velocity tumbler. The moment the stolen cryptocurrency hit a Prince-controlled wallet, the software would shred it. Imagine a single Bitcoin stolen from a retiree in California. The Prism would break that one Bitcoin into 100,000 tiny fragments. It would then send those fragments through a mixer, bouncing them between 5,000 different digital wallets in a matter of seconds. Then, it would hop the money across different blockchains, from Bitcoin to Monero, then to Ethereum, and finally into Tether. By the time the money was reassembled into a single account, its origin was gone. It was virgin crypto. Untraceable, untaggable, and ready to be spent. But digital money is only half the battle. To be truly untouchable, Chen Zhi needed physical assets. He needed the kind of wealth that governments respect. This is when the Prince Group began its aggressive expansion into the London real estate market. Between 2019 and 2024, Chen Zhi-affiliated entities purchased over £300 million worth of prime property in Mayfair, Knightsbridge, and North London. They weren't just buying houses, they were buying reputation. When you own a £50 million mansion next to a foreign embassy and sit on the board of a London-based charity, the world stops looking at you like a scammer and starts looking at you like a peer of the realm. But the rinse had a third, even more sophisticated layer: the circular investment. Chen Zhi founded Prince Bank as a legitimate, regulated financial institution. This was the masterstroke. Prince Bank would issue a low-interest loan to a construction company in Cambodia. That construction company would then hire a consulting firm in Singapore to help with its projects. The consulting firm, secretly owned by Chen Zhi, would charge a management fee of $100 million. That $100 million was actually the stolen scam money. By the time it reached the Singapore firm, it was documented as a consulting fee. The money had officially entered the legitimate banking system. It was now clean profit. The scale of this circular investment was so large that it began to distort the entire Cambodian economy. At one point, Prince Bank was reporting growth that outpaced the national GDP. Financial analysts in Washington began to ask a simple question: how can a single bank in a developing nation be more profitable than some of the oldest banks in Europe? The answer was hidden on the 13th floor. In late 2024, an elite unit of the Internal Revenue Service criminal investigation team managed to plant a digital bug inside a firmware update for the Prince Group's server cooling systems. They weren't looking at the money. They were looking at the heat. Every time a major pig butchering campaign was launched, like the Golden Harvest operation that targeted Australian retirees, the servers on the 13th floor would spike to 95 degrees Celsius. That pattern became impossible to ignore. A surge of victims in Melbourne, and minutes later, a surge of heat in a tower in Phnom Penh. For the investigators, this was the smoking gun. Physical proof that the Prince Group's legitimate real estate empire and the illegal scam compounds were running on the same machine. But heat signatures weren't the only trail they were following. While tracing the financial flows, the investigators discovered a series of transfers that didn't go to London. And they didn't go to Singapore. They went somewhere far more unusual. A private military contractor in Eastern Europe. At first, the analysts assumed it was a mistake. But the payments kept appearing. The Prince Group wasn't just buying buildings. They were buying protection. Specifically, advanced signals intelligence equipment, the kind normally used by governments to intercept satellite communications. That discovery raised a question inside the investigation team that nobody could answer. Why would a real estate tycoon need the ability to jam military-grade signals? The answer, investigators believed, lay in a meeting that was about to happen. A private villa on the coast of Sihanoukville. Chen Zhi had reportedly invited what insiders called the Shadow Board, a group of powerful figures from 3 different countries. The topic of the meeting was simple: the exit strategy. They knew the FBI was closing in. They knew investigators were watching the building. And they knew the 13th floor was becoming impossible to hide. During that meeting, according to intelligence summaries circulated among investigators, Chen Zhi reportedly said a sentence that would haunt the case for years. If they take the bank, we take the grid. And if they take the grid, we take the country. That moment changed how the investigation was viewed. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about fraud anymore. It wasn't just about money laundering. It was about leverage. The kind of leverage that comes from controlling data. Millions of identities. Millions of financial records. Millions of digital vulnerabilities harvested from victims around the world. From the perspective of the investigators in Washington, D.C., the implications were chilling. The man they were pursuing wasn't simply running a scam empire. He was building a digital pressure point on an entire region. As analysts watched the temperature spikes from the 13th floor appear on their monitors, the scale of the problem became clear. They weren't just tracking criminal profits. They were watching the infrastructure of a shadow network. And every spike of heat meant another campaign had begun. Another group of victims. Another wave of money. Another layer of control. By then, the clock was already ticking. Because if the investigators were right, the so-called Great Rinse wasn't just a financial operation anymore. It was becoming something far more dangerous. A system powerful enough to threaten the digital stability of an entire region. By December 2025, the invisible king was no longer invisible. The silence of the Cambodian jungle was being replaced by the static of high-level diplomatic cables. The US State Department had stopped sending polite requests to Phnom Penh. They began sending ultimatums. The Chekhov's gun in this story was the US dollar. Because the Cambodian economy is heavily dollarized, the US Treasury held a weapon more powerful than any army: the ability to disconnect Cambodia from the global SWIFT payment system. "You have 24 hours to decide," the ambassador allegedly told the Cambodian representative. "You can have Chen Zhi, or you can have a functioning economy. You cannot have both." This was the beginning of the Great Pivot. For a decade, Chen Zhi had been the ultimate insider. He was a Nik Okna. He was an advisor to the Ministry of Interior. He had funded the ruling party's most expensive projects. But in the world of high-stakes geopolitics, loyalty is a depreciating asset. On January 4th, 2026, just 48 hours before his arrest, Chen Zhi hosted what he believed was a strategic dinner at his private villa in the hills above Sihanoukville. The table was set with $5,000 bottles of Petrus. The guards at the gate were carrying gold-plated rifles. But there was one detail Chen Zhi missed. Throughout the dinner, several guests kept checking their phones. Not for messages, for a signal. A message flashed. "The gate is open." Within minutes, the guards at the outer perimeter simply stepped aside. They didn't fight. They didn't run. Their contracts had been canceled. Chen Zhi looked out toward the sea. For the first time in 10 years, the neon lights of his empire seemed to flicker. "Is there a problem with the grid?" he asked. "There is no problem with the grid, Vincent," the guest replied. "There is a problem with the world, and the world wants its money back." What happened next became the stuff of investigative legend. Chen Zhi didn't try to run. He didn't reach for a weapon. Instead, he walked calmly to a small mahogany cabinet and pulled out a single, slim black laptop. He didn't open it. He simply held it. "You think you are taking me," Chen Zhi reportedly told the room. "But you are only taking a body. The heart is on the 13th floor. And the 13th floor is already screaming." He was referring to what investigators later called the wipe switch. Chen Zhi believed that if he was arrested, a dead man's switch would trigger a global deletion of 127,271 bitcoins. In other words, he thought he could hold $15 billion hostage for his freedom. But as the special forces prepared to breach the dining room doors, something else was happening thousands of miles away. Inside a dark operations room in Virginia, a technician from the FBI's Operation Ghost Ledger was watching a screen filled with system diagrams. And he had one advantage Chen Zhi didn't know about. Remember the digital bug hidden inside the cooling system firmware? It hadn't just been monitoring temperature. It had been mapped directly to the emergency power grid of the 13th floor. So before Chen Zhi could even open the laptop, the technician sent a command. The FBI shunted the power to the 13th floor. For exactly 60 seconds, the servers went dark. And in that darkness, the wipe switch lost its connection to the internet. Those 60 seconds changed everything. Because while the servers were blind, the special forces breached the villa. Doors shattered. Boots hit marble floors. And the man once called the Prince of Cambodia was tackled to the ground. The mahogany villa was gone. The Petrus wine was irrelevant. The gold-plated rifles meant nothing. Chen Zhi was no longer a king. He was a high-value target secured with plastic zip ties. But as soldiers escorted him toward the waiting helicopter, Chen Zhi turned and looked back at the villa. And he smiled. Not the smile of a defeated man. The smile of someone who knew a secret the investigators hadn't discovered yet. Because from the FBI's perspective, the operation had worked. They had frozen the bitcoins. They had seized the towers. They had captured the prince. Case closed. But as the helicopter lifted into the dark Cambodian sky, the technician in Virginia noticed something on his monitor. Something that made his blood run cold. The power to the 13th floor was still off. The servers were completely dead. But the outflow of data had not stopped. The $15 billion was still moving. That should have been impossible. If the servers were dead, where was the data coming from? The technician began scanning every node in the network. Every relay. Every mirror. Every hidden tunnel. And then the realization hit him. The 13th floor was a decoy. The real core, the real brain of the Prince Group had never been inside that building. It was somewhere else. Somewhere no one had thought to look. And as the sun rose over Cambodia on January 6, 2026, the world was about to discover something even more disturbing. The so-called Invisible King didn't just have one identity. He had another one. And that second identity was far more dangerous than the first. As the helicopter carrying Chen Zhi vanished into the gray horizon toward the Chinese border on January 7, 2026, a heavy silence fell over the Prince Holding Group headquarters. But for the FBI's Operation Ghost Ledger team in Virginia, the noise was just beginning. It is now January 21, 2026, exactly 2 weeks since the arrest. The power to the 13th floor office was cut 14 days ago. The servers are cold, dead blocks of silicon. Yet the data, the trillions of packets representing the stolen wealth of 10 million victims, is still pulsing across the global network like a frantic heartbeat. The building is dark, the technician whispers. The realization is terrifying. Chen Zhi never intended for the 13th floor to be the brain. It was a decoy. The real core existed somewhere investigators couldn't touch. High above the earth. Years earlier, Chen Zhi funded a project described as a renewable energy and rural connectivity initiative. In reality, it installed a network of satellite-linked systems across the jungles of the Cardamom Mountains. These weren't weather sensors. They were the nodes of a decentralized private cloud. Chen Zhi had built a ghost internet, one that existed outside the reach of any terrestrial government. His data, his victims, his Bitcoin keys, his sovereign keys, now circled the Earth 300 miles above the surface, moving at 17,000 miles per hour. There is no trial. As of January 21st, 2026, there is only interrogation, and the hunt for the missing billions. The U.S. Department of Justice seized 127,271 bitcoins, the largest seizure in history. But the math didn't add up. The total profits from the Prince compounds were $22 billion. $7 billion were missing. Investigators returned to the ruins of the headquarters. They tore open the walls of the 13th floor, and deep inside the concrete foundation, they found a lead-lined vault. Inside were cold storage hardware wallets connected to a fiber optic cable running into the city's underground sewage system. The $7 billion hadn't gone to the cloud. It had been tunneled out. The trail ended at a small house. When police raided it on January 15th, it was empty. The wallets were gone. The cable had been cut with a blowtorch. The $7 billion is now believed to be in the hands of the Shadow Board. The intelligence officers and mercenaries who managed Chen Zhi's security. They allowed the prince to become the pig that was slaughtered, so they could vanish with the real prize. The search continues. Chen Zhi sits in a cell in Beijing, but the machine he built is still running. If you look at the dark hills of the Cardamom Mountains tonight, you can still see a faint blue light from a satellite relay station. A signal. A pulse. We thought we were investigating a man. We were actually investigating a virus. The prince is in a cell, but the 13th floor is everywhere. It is in your phone. It is in your bank. It is in the voice of the person you think you love. The machine never stops. It only changes its name. And somewhere, in a new windowless room in a new country, a monitor turns on. A message is typed. Hello. You look like a kind soul. Do you have a moment to talk?